Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to another installment of the Quick View series. This is Volume 66, the third episode of Volume 66, which is actually really the first episode, the first installment of Volume 66, because it came indeed from the live stream. This springs from the time when, shortly after the announcement of the release of the Vanquish mullet, which I do not approve of on any level, and for those unaware, here is why. In order to achieve the mullet configuration, they flip the third member upside down so that the drive shaft is below the links, and many people are jumping to the defense of it, which is absolutely bonkers insane. And the reason that they flipped it upside down is A, it's the easiest and laziest way to do it. B, Vanquish doesn't sell a reverse gear, which you typically need on matched axles. So if you have an F10 front and an F10 portal rear, you're going to need a reverse gear so that the axles rotate in the same direction. And they don't make a plastic housing and third member that does it, but they do make an aluminum axle housing and third member that will allow a flipped gear. So if you buy a Vanquish mullet and you want to do it properly, which is have the drive shaft up above the links, you can do it at a low cost of around $200. Between, let's say, $195 and $225, depending on your choice of gear. Or you can dig into the parts bins, grab just quite literally random parts, slap them together, and see what you come up with. And that is where we have come with this. This is a mullet. It wouldn't be appropriate if it wasn't a mullet. Let us begin with the shiny, optically confusing bits. These are Injora silver carbon fiber rails for SCX10 Pro. That is that, and the front plastic motor mount are the extent of parts here from a 10 Pro. Oh no, from bumper mount. So we've got bumper mount, rails, and plastic FMM. And I think that's it from the 10 Pro. The front axle is the absolute bog standard, completely unadjustable, all fixed, one piece, what was coming in the builder's kits from Axial AR44 axle. It is indeed fitted with an 833 front gear, and I will explain that a little bit more here in a moment. The shocks are factory team from an Element, but in reality, I do believe any 90mm shock would serve. The rear bumper mount from a 10 Pro has been replaced with the rear bumper mount from an Element, because this is an Element Ecto, and I think we can agree the fit is pretty good. Just kind of drops right down there. It's got a little bit of a mud truck, like it looks kind of long, and why I believe that is the body, as you can see, basically perfectly lines up with the chassis rails, but I have shortened the front links and lengthened the rear links. We are still sitting at a 327mm wheelbase, which is about 3mm shy of where I want to be, and about 3mm over where an Ecto is. So this is very similar to the wheelbase, but everything has just shifted back a couple of millimeters. If we can cheat our way into a little bit more skid forward, I'm all for it. And because we skid forwarded it via link placement, it's just servo on axle. It's not incredibly skid forward, but there is about a 30mm split between front link length and rear link length. The rear axle is straight up TRX4, no change in the internal gears. It's running the 1134 in the middle, and that gets us a net of, you can see them rear wheels moving pretty slow. By running a Creeper T gearbox made into the 10 Pro FMM, it is reversed, so the big gear is running to the front. So that should be 30% underdrive to the front, as these axles unmodified. This axle is a 7.9 to 1 axle, and this is a 3.75 to 1 axle. We've put an 833 in it, so it's a 4.125 axle. That is still upwards of 40%. If they are unmodified, if there's an 830 in here, the split is 53%. It's 53% rear underdrive. It's a big split. So we put an 833 in here, we route 30% to the front, and it gets us 28.8%, because the output of the fake Creeper T is not actually 30% underdrive, but rather 27. And as you move away from the gearbox, how does math actually work? What appears to happen is that the changes become less impactful, because putting this gear in the front only changed it by about 6.5%, when that is, compared to what is in there before, it's a 10% jump. You're from 830 to 833, it's 10%. But that's not how it comes out in the final. Powering this, because we have ridiculous gear reductions, powering this is a Fusion Mini 16. It's very small. There is the home cobbled adapter plate, because as I was quite literally just digging in bins, grabbing parts, putting them together, had the Tower Hobby Sail Ecto body, didn't even remember that the bumper came with the body. Everything just kind of went together. These are the 10 Pro sliders. They are cut down to fit the body. I don't mind them. I have a strong distaste for them in their stock configuration. They are oversized, and we might end up trimming a little bit off this point because it is right below the rail. We'll see after the ghost ride, which is what is going to occur today, if we get any scarification right up in there. So, Mini 16 both simplifies things and complicates things. The Mini 16 was, and no one will be able to convince me differently, it was designed specifically for the Axial UTV 18. So if you try to put it in anything else, do trust me when I say this, you are attempting to ice skate uphill. So we are ice skating uphill. It is fitted with a 13-tooth pinion, which is the pinion from the UTV 18, and the only spur gear that I've got that has teeth in good condition is a big Kimbrough 96. Look how close we are to the rail there. Oh boy. I have since, once I buttoned down the electronics, I've been able to drag around on the floor. It is not too slow. It's not too slow, but because we have so much gear reduction. How much gear reduction do you ask? With a 13 feeding an 87, feeding into a front axle that, after the output from the underdrive, has a 10.9 to 1 final. So let's round up for ease of math. 11 revolutions of this shaft right here equals 1 revolution of this. And then in the rear, because of the portals, 15.3 revolutions to get this to go around once. We multiply that by the spur to pinion ratio, and we have a front ratio of 81 to 1, actually 80.7 to 1, and in the rear, 113 to 1. Now, ordinarily and typically, I would not advise anyone to set up a vehicle with 80 to 1 final on a straight axle and 113 to 1 on the portal. But this thing comes in one flavor, the Hobby Wing version, and that is 3,000 kV. And we only run 3S batteries. So 3S, 3,000 kV. 3,000 kV, that means 1,000 motor revolutions per volt is regular, but this is 3,000 revolutions per volt. So this thing will wind it up. So we have a lot. We have a lot of gear reduction. I think that I could get away with a 90, maybe even an 87, which would, an 87 would take us down to around 73 to 1 in the front and 102 to 1 in the back. Like that would be usable. You wouldn't have quite, like, how slow can we go? You might not be able to get down to this slow but it would go pretty slow. And you can really, at this amount of throttle input, those things are barely turning. It is really dragging a rear end there. I typically like to come out, end up around 20%. So we are going to find out what happens at 28%. There is something important and there is something relevant, and I don't want to not mention it. That is the weights. The weights came out strongly okay for, quite literally, parts thrown together. Traxxas axle, axial axle, Endura rails, element skid, element rod ends throughout, whatever links would fit. These are Endura weights for AR-44. These are the knockoff SSD pumpkin covers for AR-44. That is an AGFRC SA-75 CBSW V2. It is fast. It is fast. It is direct power because I do not want to rely on the BEC in a motor the size of a thimble. We are running 1.3 pound per inch element, 10 by 35 springs in the rear, and the 0.7 pound per inch in the front, because the weight bias is fairly typical. On the scale, 2,246 grams. Our cross weight is a perfect 50-50. 1121, 1125. Cross weight is measured from here to here and here to here. 4 grams different in ground pressure across. Front left has got 653 grams on it. Front right has got 656 grams on it. Rear left has got 465 grams on it. And rear right has 472 grams on it. So we do not have a lot of differential from wheel to wheel. And we are looking at 58.42 in terms of weight distribution. And based on how little these weigh, like, we're doing okay. The balance point is legit right about here. It's right about here. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. We can tweak it. I don't know if we explicitly need to. And I should mention, 2,246 grams is 4.95 pounds. So this thing in fully RTR configuration, as it sits right here on these delightful gold and chrome Endura very deeps, which still only take us out to right at 250 on our front wheel track on the straight, and right at about 255 in the rear. So we might change hub. We might want to go down a little width of hub. I don't tend to like to be a little wider in the rear. It looked very close. It could just be insert. These are, should be mentioned, stock tires from Wizard. Tires and inserts from an 06 Wizard. These are gold dot KLR V2s with ultra air downs in the front and air downs in the rear. They were grabbed off of the rack because they looked like they would fit, and a lot of tires, as I think I mentioned, don't particularly care for huge underdrive overdrive splits. And I am one who, unlike many folk, they don't even consider big overdrive until they're up past 40%. But I consider 28.8% to be kind of a lot. So we're going to see how it fares. And tire selection for that is going to be a bit more tricky. If you're here and you've gotten to this point and you're like, yes, that's all fun. But why? Why the mullet? Why the high clearance portal rear with a straight axle front? So the straight axle front is to keep the CG down. So this means that basically you're deliberately making a vehicle that has a lower center of gravity here and a higher center of gravity at the rear end. Because what this does is, when climbing, it is far more difficult to go over backwards because you have to pivot around an axle that has a dropped pivot point. So portal vehicles are less likely to go over backwards, but if you have portals at both ends, it's far easier. Now the center of gravity is higher. If you take a vehicle and you make no other changes than to put portals on it, the center of gravity is going to raise by whatever the portal drop is. Whatever the distance is between the actual inner drive shaft and the portal output, your CG raises by that much. And unless other changes are made and other compensations are taken, there's no way around it. That's just math. If the portal drop is 12 millimeters and we have two completely identical vehicles in every way, one's got Vanquish F10 straights and one's got Vanquish F10 portals, or one has AR-45 straights and one has AR-45 portals, the CG raises 12 millimeters. So we're trying to keep the CG down in the front, which is important, while raising it in the rear, because this will make the vehicle it will give us more forward drive as it gets steeper. And the added bonus to it is, if you can get the front over, if you can clear your approach, this will not get hung up on anything because it's 12 millimeters high. So lower in the front, taller in the back. It also gives you a lot of ability to manipulate your underdrive overdrive, to tailor it to exactly where you want it. This is somewhat less easy. There was a whole, is it still here? Yeah. As you're trying to figure it out, you end up with a whole whiteboard of math trying to figure out where the ratios are. And isn't it an advantage to get a kit that is mulletable out of the box? I mean, sure. If you buy an Ot6 Wizard, it will mullet straight out of the box with no math because they use no reduction portals. It's a 15-tooth gear turning a 15-tooth gear, so you get the advantage of the portal drop without messing with the gearing. And that's not bad. That's not bad. But if you use, say, an AR-45 back here, you can change the portal gears, you can change the middle gear, you can change the gear in the front, you can alter it you can use the Stealth X in there. And by feeding it either way, you can have 0, 6, 12, 18, 25. You can really custom tailor what you want. And the thing is, aside from the Wizard, I don't regard any off-the-shelf option of a mullet as viable. Because you need to be able to tune it to the way you drive. There is absolutely no correct amount of underdrive / overdrive. It doesn't exist. Because if you don't like 38% overdrive in your VRD, if you always feel like it's kind of dropping the tail back, then put the conventional portal gears back in the portal box, drop yourself down to 21% and go, oh, if you feel like 21% you're still getting too tippy, then put the portal gears on it and try 38. There is no correct answer. And the correct answer changes by every individual person, right? You have your number, and then you'll have one build, and then you have another build next to it, not the same. This tire might not be it for this. This tire might be great on something else. It might be great on this. And there's really only one way to find out. Is you put a battery in it, you take it out, you put it on the rocks, and you go, You ask yourself the questions. What is it doing that I don't want it to do? And what is it not doing that I do want it to do? And then you make your adjustments accordingly. You don't want to conflate, I don't think I'm driving this right, with, I don't think this thing is driving right. Takes some time to get to, no substitute for wheel time. And then what you do is you get your parts bins together and you start throwing parts together, and then you find out, did I make something that agrees with me? Many vehicles have left the canyon because maybe I built them, maybe I bought them, and we came to a conclusion that we weren't meshing, it wasn't passing her test, it wasn't sparking joy. So building this, the 4.95 pound mullet, where everything just kind of accidentally fit together, really did spark joy through the process, even though every single link on here was built multiple times. Because, again, unknowingly building to a body. So I do have hopes. I have hopes that it will do well, and I know to reserve them enough, because the tires might not be the thing, other things might not be the thing. But we will hope, and we will let the rocks tell us if we lucked our way into it. It's fairly standard that ghost rides have that little element of, what did we get wrong? Or in terms of an RTR or something that comes out of a box. What did they get wrong? The 28.8 and how cooperative a KLR V2 is going to be with 28.8 are my only real concerns. It is, at the lower velocities, it's great. It gets a little, it'll really wind it out, but after having the drive back, we often learn a lot from the drive back. After the drive back, that 90, we may got to go 96. Like, we could go maybe a 90 and maybe down a tooth or two, get us some Latrax 2.3 millimeter pinions. We've got to be right around here. 3,000 on 3S is extra spicy. The low control with all of that gear reduction, though, it's not bad. That should... Oh, no bog there. I thought we might maybe bog because we are really dragging the rear end. I'm trying to keep... Look at the RPM on the rear tire. I'm on a very slick point right there. Try to go here. Get it over. And as I said, if the front end gets through, the rear is going to get through. It's got a sound that it's almost like a squelch. It's got like a... It can go from dead silent to some really weird noises. And that is all about gear speed. That pinion gear is flying. That thing's really moving. So if we come into approach with a little more typical throttle control, oh yeah, it is super foreign. The amount of pressure, the amount of trigger pressure, 3S, 3000, this much gear reduction, the power band is real weird. Also, motor the size of a thimble. The power band is real weird. Springing looks pretty close. This is, if a Fusion is like a V8, this is like turbo 4, maybe turbo 3-cylinder. It drives neither heavy nor light. Skidded. It kind of, and this is all 3000. This is all Fusion Mini 16. And why is there a Fusion Mini 16? Which I neglected to answer if you haven't seen either of the live streams during which this was built. The stock motor plate on a 10 Pro is what I would call outrunner unfriendly. Like, there's a groove in the plastic. It's got a lip on it that is like right where the output wires on a outrunner go. So your choices are get an aluminum motor plate, which I didn't have on hand, or figure something out. And this guy is, without competition, the lightest vehicle in the fleet by a fair amount. By like he is at least 10% lighter. Our previous lightest was another 10 Pro build named Rainbird. This somehow, he runs a conventional outrunner setup. I don't know why this is under 5 pounds. I don't explicitly know why. It's got axle weights. It's got... What we're doing is we're saying things must be okay if we're getting overly analytical about build choices. KLRs might be the jiggity jam, which is counterintuitive. Again, do you remember? Can you think back a few minutes when I said there's no such thing as the perfect weight bias. There's no such thing as the perfect amount of underdrive, overdrive. There's no perfect tire. No tire is going to be the absolute best tire on every build. You can take these tires off of this and put them on that and say, oh, I don't know, an '06 Wizard. I didn't like them on the Wizard. And I am sure, I can all but guarantee, there are people out there that run these on their Wizard and they're like, oh, these are the best. I love these. I have 2 Wizards in the shop. Neither of them are on KLR V2s. Neither one. One is on Megalithics, and the other one is on Upgrade RC Rock Claws, and they're great. Both of them are great in their own ways. And why is this relevant? Why is he talking about this? During the test and building of the Wizard, I had said several times, I did not believe that the Wizard presented enough PSI for these tires to be happy. You see where I've become contradictory now, because a Wizard is heavier than this. This is the lightest vehicle in the fleet, so it is clearly not generating as much PSI as another, and these tires seem to love it just fine. It is quite maneuverable. One of the absolute advantages to big underdrive and overdrive splits is I've just been full lock this whole time. Let's see if we can. This guy is a high winder. It's like, this guy got VTEC. You gotta get up there in the band for stuff to happen. That spur gear is twirling. 83 to 1 up front. 83 revolutions in the motor shaft to turn the front tires once. That's like, we don't really have, I don't tend to get up above 80, and let's not talk about the 113 to 1 in the rear. What I can say, massive amounts of gear reduction like this. Not something you would ordinarily need. Something you can absolutely build your way into, though. We definitely still get the low. I can hear either Lexan or plastic scraping. I want to see, do they have enough gusto? Slide it down. So we do not appear to have anything resembling stability issues. Like, it didn't even lift a tire that I saw. It is super weird to drive on the heels of anything else. The way it feels like it picks its feet up and puts them down is really weird. Have not heard a single angry Lexan noise from the tires. We'll make a quick little stop at Staircase here so I can tell you that it is California cool this morning. 58, 15, 85. Feels wonderful. Feels wonderful. Also, we are in what is ostensibly an artificial environment, right? Ordinarily busted up and haphazardly glued together concrete is not a typical flooring surface, so it holds heat a little bit. So it's very, on the piazza, it's very pleasant this morning. Yeah. Do you see the flatness? We are very flat. Ooh. Get out on the point. The amount of drag, how many pixies and how well are they trained that live inside a Fusion? Because motor the size of a thimble. I want to say the motor is, it's some weird measurement where it's like 28, 26, 42 or something. And there's the speed control in this. It shouldn't be able to generate the drag brake that it does. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. The 28%, and I call it the one of the world's most dangerous axles. That one piece AR-44 fitted with Injora knuckles. There are no stops on the axle. There are no stops on the knuckle. That thing will turn to like 60 degrees. And the universal will not work at that throw. So we are relying on two things. We are relying on electronic limiting of the servo. And we are hoping that the servo is strong enough that if we get us into a situation where it's a bind, that the tire won't overwhelm the servo and get us to a point where, well, snapple-dapple, I guess. The forward drive feels excellent. I'm going to stick with Turbo 4. It doesn't quite feel Chevy Sprint. I don't think we're Turbo 3. We're not quite a K car. Oh, that was a pretty nice bridge. I've got to relearn inputs. It's not about how hard you're pulling the trigger. It's about where it feels like a power band. Because the spinny bit is so small in there, this has got a very brushed feel to it. But at the same time, it gets that brushed feel through, you know they say no replacement for displacement. Well, this one doesn't have any. This is a 1.3 liter in here. But the passenger front and the driver rear are not touching the ground right now. Now, how much of that is a tremendous surplus of mechanical advantage? Well, quite a good bit of it. This is a lever pushing a lever pushing a lever pushing a lever pushing a lever. It's levers all the way down. 83-1 in the front is really helping out the Fusion Mini 16. But if you want to do a foolhardy thing, like put a Fusion Mini 16 in a full-size 10th scale rig, you have 80-1 and above gear reductions in front of you. Honestly, it just occurred to me. I have 3-1 and 5-1 planetary reducers. A 3-1 planetary reducer would basically turn this into a 1000 kV motor. And then you could just run a normal spur and pinion. It just occurred to me right now. Finding out if we made bad choices is one part of it. The other part of it is, what thing will we think of during the ghost drive? There is a gentleman that appears in my comments and live streams, and his tagline is lightweight always. I'm not going to say he's wrong, because this is a sprightly, little high-winding thing, and I had built mental contingencies, we can just get a metal motor plate and slap a reasonable, like an 1800 kV outrunner in, gear it appropriately, and be on our way. But you know what? I kind of like it. It's weird. And it doesn't drive like the other ones. So, I mean, in the grand scheme, did I do it right? Huh? Did I do it my way? Yeah. Getting a little bullied. There we go. Oh, yeah. You know what? Maybe I did get it right. I'm Groundhog Daying it, is what I'm doing. Just keep building them. Don't fall into a trap. And that trap is the trap that I fall into about 50% of the time. That trap is getting deep, wading into the waters of the iterative process, where you make it, and then you make a change, and then you make it, and you make a change, and then you go, I don't know, I don't think this set of rails quite, something about the geometry, or this axle, and you get iterative. And then you make a change, and then you make a change, and then you make a change. Then what happens over time is after you do it long enough, you get to the point where we've built this mullet right here. We've built a high, winding, screaming, howling boy. If I'm going to do it again, I'm going to take what I learned from this one, and I'm going to put it into the next one. That is my iterative process. Lessons learned building this, whatever this is. We talk about what makes a rig. Oh, that rear clear is so good. What makes a rig? Is it the gearbox? Is it the axles? Is it the transmission? What is it? I guess the biggest number of parts here are 10 Pro. So I guess this is a 10 Pro. This is a 10 Pro with a TRX4 axle and an axial AR44 and an element body and element shocks. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm still in the midst of a string. Now let me center. I'm still in the midst of a string of ghost rides that have been concerningly successful. And I think if I want to attach that to something, it's that non-iterative process. We are proceeding iteratively by building one and then building another and then building another and then building another. And even if we're not trying to build the same snowman, it doesn't have to be a snowman. Even if we're not building the same snowman over and over and over again, we're still building snowmen. So I'm learning. Each time I make one, I learn a little something. The only hope that I hold in my heart is that someday I will figure out how to do this without every single build turning into a certified Link Olympics as I try to get the wheelbase to work. This is a song by a band called Incubus called Aqueous Transmission. I think it's probably my favorite Incubus song. And he talks about how the sky looks like diamonds strewn across a blue blanket, and the ground in the canyon is very similar to that, only it's not a blue blanket, it's dirt. And it's not diamonds, it's beadlock screws, because you can't walk out here and not see at least one beadlock screw. Just out of the corner of your eye, it'll catch the sun just right, and you'll just see the little glimmer of a beadlock screw. They fall out all the time. I have one of those big, I have a 3-foot wide rolling magnet, and I take it through here. And the problem is, most beadlock hardware is, to call it inexpensive, I think that's elevating it too high. So it's just little rust pebbles at that point. So you're not saving anything, because anyone that is properly stainless, what? Can't even call it catch of the day, because I don't know how that didn't go over sideways. I was sitting in the last station and I thought, Tumbledore or side hill? And the fact that we are, ooh, there it is. I hope we get enough at lock to show me where I need to turn the body. Oh yeah! Remember when I said that portal rear axle is just doing everything in its power to keep that front end down? I had other contingencies. I've got full-on deluxe AR44 weights in there, like 340 grams for the pair. I don't need it. We don't need it. Those Enjoras are absolutely fine. I genuinely think we could probably get away with plastic knuckles, but I don't care for metal on metal, but I will take metal on metal over plastic on plastic. On a lot of rigs here, I will have a plastic housing, a brass or aluminum C-hub, and then a plastic knuckle. You need something in between because flexiness is an issue. So we're just going to stick with this as it sits. I'm going to think about the gearing, but I really don't have any huge reservations about what's under there right now. That SA75 is more than enough to move these front tires. We're going to stay. It's so flat. It's just finding the amount of throttle input. See, there's no lift. We're right between the wheelbase. Okay, we'll try the overwrap. Okay, right there. We just did a little drop back, and most vehicles are living up to the name of the obstacle. They're going full tumble door if we just slap it into reverse. But this thing has not tried even once to lift nose. No, we have manipulated ourselves around in an uncomfortable way. Yeah, there is a maneuverability. How much of that is mullet? How much of that is 2,200 grams and change, 4.95 pounds? I don't know. We've got a pretty darn good tire to rig agreement. I hook this edge. Whoop. You know, there may be some dissent, but I think we did all right. That body is going to get hobby foam on the inside of it for sure. If the front gets through, the rear gets through. I figured out what it is. It took till right now, but I figured out what the problem is. Tay-Tay said it. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Because what I'm doing is I'm listening for tone. And this thing screams. This is a banshee. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Did it just become banshee? As I said, we started off half tongue-in-cheek as a joke because I'll say it again. This is a hill upon which I am comfortable dying. The Vanquish mullet is not how you do a mullet. I'm not saying that this is how you do it either. I'm saying this is how I did it. And I'm saying that I can all but guarantee the Vanquish isn't going to return a similar level of performance because the drive shaft is about 3/4 of an inch lower than this one. I didn't buy any, I do have deeper parts bins than many, but I didn't buy anything to build this mullet. I dug through the bins, and we are reaping the benefits of the tower hobbies, the inexplicable, unless you believe in corporate espionage, the inexplicable tower hobby sale of Element products, because I put a bunch of stuff on here, including the body. I am really happy with this. I doubt that it's going to be the last mullet that we'll build, but I feel like this one came out here and set that bar a little bit higher for what my expectations are for a mullet. There is no parts curation on this. I happened to have enough parts to build a TRX4 rear axle, and I happen to have that home, just that front. There's no matching rear to that AR-44. Where did it go? I don't know. I don't know. But I have that one. And that is what I built it out of. And here we are at the end. Here's where we made it to the end. And as always, questions and comments and concerns in the comments section below. If you have anything that you want to know about mullets, if you just want to just ask a question, that is the perfect place to do it. Also, check out the Canyon Discord. Do consider becoming a channel member, because sometimes we decide, and I'm not saying that it's 100%, but this gentleman, who might be Banshee, has definitely earned a spot on a skid, a place in the fleet, which means someone might have to leave. And channel members have the opportunity to get rigs given away. I've never sold one, but I've given away a lot. So come on back and see that. Come on back and see all the other things. I thank you so much for joining us here today. I look forward to seeing you then, and in between now and that hopefully inevitable moment, please one and all do your very best to have a good one, everybody. We will see you again here from the canyon with whatever we have on that day. Banshee is going to scream us out.